Well, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept the humble obeisances. All glories to David Krishna Prabhupada. All glories to assembled Vaishnava devotees. Thank you for being here as always. Hare Krishna. Let me do this. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamuti Rayit Nashtaprayashu Abhadrashu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 13, text number 49. Hare Krishna. Salika Prabhu, can you see the screen?
Yes, I can. Hare Krishna.
All right, you go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Okay, but you need to pull the class.
Yeah, you can. Yes.
Yeah, I can see the screen. Narayana Namaskritam Narayachaivam Narutama Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tatu Gayam Udiraye.
You can go live.
We are live.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. Sorry. Yeah, right.
We are live, sir. Different.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's okay. Narayana Namaskritam Narayachaivam Narutavam Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tatu Gayam Udiraye. Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. I think I'm echoing.
No, you're good. You're good. There is no echo.
Okay. I think I know why it is doing that, because the live YouTube is on. Okay. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, chapter 13, text number 49. Tasme prasane sakalasi samprabhao kim durlabam tabi alam labat mabi anan yadrishta bhajatam tu asayaha swayam vidate swagatim parampara. Tasme prasane sakalasi samprabhao kim durlabam tabi alam lavat mabi anan yadrishta bhajatam guasaya swayam vidate swam gati para aparam. Tasme prasane sakalasi samprabhao kim durlabam tabi alam lavat mabi anan yadrishta bhajatam guhasaya swayam vidate swam gatim para aparam. Word for word translation. Tasme unto him, prasane being pleased, sakala as a sum of all benedictions, prabhao unto the Lord, kim what is that? Durulabaham, very difficult to obtain. Tabi, with them. Alam, away. Lava atmabi, with insignificant gains. Ananya drishtuaha, by nothing but devotional service. Bhajatam, of those who are engaged in devotional service. Wuha asaya, residing within the earth. Swayam personally, vidyate execute. Swagatim in his own abode. Paraha, the supreme. Paraham, transcendental. Translation purport by his divine grace, led by Charana Ravinda. Sila Esi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada. Nothing remains unachieved when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with someone. By transcendental achievement, one understands everything else to be insignificant. One who engages in transcendental loving service is elevated to the highest personal perfectional stage by the Lord himself, who is seated in everyone's heart. Purport by his divine grace, Labai Charana Shila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Jagadguru Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, 10 verse 10. The Lord gives intelligence to the pure devotees so that they may be elevated to the highest perfectional stage. It is confirmed herein that a pure devotee who constantly engages in the loving service of the Lord is awarded all knowledge necessary to reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For such a devotee, there is nothing valuable to be achieved but the Lord's service. If one serves faithfully, there is no possibility of frustration because the Lord himself takes charge. Can you scroll up? Of the devotee's advancement. The Lord is seated in everyone's heart, and he knows this devotee's motive and arranges everything achievable. In other words, the pseudo devotee who is anxious to achieve material gains cannot attain the highest perfectional stage because the Lord is in knowledge of his motive. One merely has to become sincere in his purpose, and then the Lord is there to help in every way. Magyanam timirandasya gyanam gyanam chalakaya shaksho militam jinatasmai shri gurave namah Sri Chaitanya manobishtam stapitam jenadrikalo swayamipam kadamaya dadati swam padantikam Vandeyam Sri Guru Sri Yuta Pada Kamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamsa Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganam Agunatam Tam Sahajivam Sadvitam Savadutam Parijanam Saita Krishna Chaitanya Dev Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Lalita Sri Vikishaka Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapati Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Vancha Karupa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyas Ivascha Patitanam Pavashnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya
Prabhu
Prabhu
Nityananda,
Nityananda
Shri
Shri
Advaita
Advaita Gadada
Nivashali Bhaktavinda. Hare
Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna
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 Krishna, Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tasme prasane sakala sisa. Nothing remains unachieved when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with someone by transcendental achievement. One understands everything else to be insignificant. One who engages in transcendental loving service is elevated to the highest perfectional stage by the Lord himself, who is seated in everyone's heart. Hare Krishna. We welcome all of the devotees to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're discussing and treating Canto 3, text chapter number 13. And today we are reading the second to the last text in chapter 13, which is text number 49. And then here Maitreya Muni is concluding his narration of Lord Varaha's appearance. And is giving the conclusion of the whole of the Vedic revealed scripture. This verse we are treating is describing the conclusion of all revealed scripture. And what is that conclusion? The conclusion is that whatever the circumstances, like the general aphorism, there are only two instructions in the whole of the Vedic literatures. What is the first instruction? To always remember Krishna. And the second is to never forget him. One who achieves these two automatically achieves every purpose of the Vedic scriptures. And such a person is pleased to the Supreme Personality of God. The Supreme Personality of God is pleased with such a person. So here, we are hearing how the description of the conclusion of all the purpose behind the narration. We have heard about the appearance of Lord Varaha. And at this junction, we are hearing Sage Maitreya Muni is speaking, and it is explaining, just like a good teacher does. A good teacher speaks so many things in the course of teaching, but he never forgets the importance of his teaching. And this is one good quality that we learned from Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj, as their spiritual master. Srila Gurudev will speak for hours. When he's starting the class, he will give any descriptions. And he's actually exemplifying the nature of the grace. When we look at the beginning of this chapter, Sukadev Goswami is narrating to Vidura. He's telling what has happened, and Maitreya Muni took it up from Sukadev Goswami. And he explained that the appearance of Manu, the father of mankind, along with his wife, does address the reservoir of the Vedic wisdom. Brahma with obeisances and folded arms. So Maitreya Muni started, he gives the synopsis of what he's going to be talking about. And in the course of his discussion, he narrated so many things. How Lord Varaha appeared, how he became a source of death to some, how he became a source of joy to others, how so many things was happening. He narrated the whole of the Leela of the Supreme Personality of God is doing. That is what Maitreya Muni is doing in the text number 48 to text number 50, which is the concluding verses in this chapter. So Maitreya Muni is giving the purpose behind all of this narration. In the course of conversation, sometimes those who are not intelligent, sometimes lose his focus when a speaker speaks. But an intelligent teacher and an intelligent student knows that in every delivery of speeches or lecture or teachings, there is supposed to be the essence of that discussion. Parishit Maharaj, he had the Vedic scriptures for 7 days, 7 nights without sleep. But at the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Maharaj look at somewhere in the Lemda code, Mara Parishit asked a very significant question. All of these narrations, he was asking about the conclusion. The same thing in Bhagavad Gita. After Lord Krishna has spoken the Bhagavad Gita, actually, Bhagavad Gita has a 10th chapter, but the whole of the Bhagavad Gita summary of whatever has been spoken from chapter 1 to chapter 10. The Bhagavad Gita in chapter 10, when he gave the Shatosloki of the Bhagavad Gita, when he gave the Shatosloki, Bhagavad chapter 10, 8 to 11, then he quoted the next second Shatosloki. Tesham Saktakta Yuktanam, Bajatam Priti Puvakam. Prabhupada quoted that in the purport of this text. Then he went to Tesham Evan Ukampam Aham Agyanam Jamtaman. He gave the conclusion. And when after hearing that, Arjun in the chapter 11 of Bhagavad Gita, later part of chapter 10 stroke 11, Arjun said, my dear Lord Krishna, now I've added from all the previous sages, Asita, Devala, great sages, they've talked about you. And now me, I've added from you now. Then he said, you are the supreme.
Hare Krishna. Seems our speaker is having problems with his connection.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. That was a break in transmission as a result of the Almighty network. And it reminds us that we're in the material world. So as I was explaining, so Arjuna told Lord Krishna, you are the supreme personality of Godhead. You are the purest of all purest. You are the unborn. He understood the conclusion. And the same thing Material Muni is bringing to the readers of this particular chapter, descriptions about the appearance of Lord Varadi, the Leela of the Lord's appearance, as Lord Krishna has said in the Bhagavad Gita, that one who understands so here, Lord Maitreya Muni is telling that for one who has achieved the pleasure of the Lord, he says such a person, there is nothing remaining unachieved for him. But this is a very interesting subject. How do one please the Supreme Personality of Godhead? In the Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, text number 13 and 14, Lord Krishna described what pleases him. Lord Krishna told Arjuna, Advaita Sarva Bhutanam Maitra Karuna Evasha Nrimamo Nira Arankara Sarma Duka Sukashami Santushta Satatam Yogi Yatatam Drida Nischaya Mayalpita Manu Ubudi Human Bhakta Same Priya. Lord Krishna is describing here how is pleased. Maitreya Muni is talking about one who has pleased the Lord. It's We pray to material in nature. Devi esa guna mayi mama maya duratia ya. One who surrenders unto you the supreme personality of God would easily overcome the challenges of material entanglement. We surrender this class unto you, O Lord. Please take care of material nature so that we can enjoy your transcendental pastimes. It is an humble prayer to you. So let's continue. So in chapter 12, text number 13 and 14, Lord Krishna was telling, just as Maitreya Muni is saying in the verse we are reading today, that one who has attained the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, nothing remains unachieved for him. And this is very important. Everybody wants to achieve she achieved everything. He wants to achieve the pleasure of the Lord. Because one who has attained the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, nothing is remaining for him to be achieved. And Lord Krishna gives hints in chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita how he can be pleased. In the verse we quoted,
So this is a quotation from Bhagavad Gita as it is. Chapter 12, text 13 and 14, which I was quoted. So it says, one who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor, and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee.
Thank you very much.
Mind is very dear to me. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Sadi, for reading that. Let's see how it goes. So in the purport to that text, Prabhupada is explaining. Prabhupada is saying, coming again to the point of the pure devotion and service, the Lord is describing the transcendental qualifications of a pure devotee in these two verses. A devotee is never, a pure devotee, let me use the word, a pure devotee is never disturbed in any circumstances, nor is he envious of anyone, nor does a devotee becomes his enemy's enemy. He thinks, this person is acting as my enemy due to my own past misdeeds. So it is better to suffer than to protest. And Prabhupada took us to 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, very famous verse. Tate nukampam su samik samano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam read vapubi vidadam namaste jivetayo muktipade sadayabak. That my dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your costless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reaction of his past misdeeds and offering respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. Why is this important to read this verse in full? Because the challenge is that when we talk, when this verse is saying nothing remains unchallenging for that person who is pleased to the Lord, material consciousness makes us to believe that when it is said that there is nothing remaining for one who has pleased the Lord, based on our material calculation, we already sorry, some little distraction. So sorry for that break in terms. My network seems to be dragging me today, but we thank God for his mercies. So when the verse says nothing remains unachieved when the supreme personality of God is pleased with someone by transcendental achievement, natural mindset of the conditioned soul is that the living entity cannot face any challenge. That is not what this verse is saying. And that is why when Prabhupada gave the qualification of one who is pleased, one who the Lord is pleased with, Prabhupada immediately quoted that verse, 10th canto, that being pleased of the pleasure of the Lord over his living entity does not mean that there are no challenges as long as one is in the material world. So that is why Prabhupada quoted that verse. That it is not because we are devotees, there will not be challenges. Challenges are going to be abound. But what is the solution? The solution is that such a person, as it is mentioned in that Srimad Bhagavatam verses, a person who is in pure consciousness of devotion and service, he earnestly awaits the Lord's costless mercy upon him. All the while, patiently embracing the sufferings and the reaction of his past misdeeds, and offering his respectful obeisances with his full heart, words, and heart to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We have seen so many devotees. They said, I can no longer practice this Krishna consciousness. I'm not like Bhrigu Pati Muni, who is caused to remain poor as a Brahmana. There are several devotees who seem like that. Say, I can no longer practice this Krishna consciousness because it's too bad. Once you become a devotee, what naturally happens is that you start suffering. But devotional service does not make anybody to become suffer. Devotional service gives a devotee pleasure in all circumstances. Why is devotee given in all circumstances, devotee is pleased? It's because he understands, he could see the hand of the Lord. And that speak to the general saying that one who leaves everything in the hands of God ultimately sees the hand of God in everything. And this is the mood of a devotee. So when my Muni is speaking in the text that we are reading today, he's saying that nothing remains unachieved when the Supreme Personality of God is pleased with someone by transcendental achievement. And Prabhupada is explaining the purport. What is the key to that? That the Lord gives the intelligence, because when the challenges comes, when the adversities come, when the unpleasant situations of the material world, nature comes around, when all of these difficulties manifest, a devotee of the Lord is secured by only one thing. What is that thing that is secured near a devotee? Because of his sincerity. And that is what Prabhupada emphasized in this text. Because of the sincerity of the devotees, the Lord comes through. Tesham saktakta yuktanam, bajatam priti pruvakam. And Prabhupada said the same thing. When you look at that chapter 10, verse 10 of Bhagavad Gita, in the purport, the same thing Srila Prabhupada mentioned here. He said that one may be in Krishna consciousness. The last sentence in chapter 10, verse 10 purport, Prabhupada said, if a devotee is not intelligent enough to make progress on the path of self-realization, but is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotion and service, the Lord gives him a chance to make progress and ultimately attain him. The same thing Prabhupada is saying there is what is emphasizing there in the purport to this text number 49 of the chapter 13 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that the secret of success, the qualification that is required, is that one must attain the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But this pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not any everyday thing easily come by. And because it's not an everyday thing to come by, the devotee knows that the sincerity, the Lord will always. When you look at the chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita, 10, how he does that, Krishna says in the text number 11, Tisham evahanu kampatam. Aham agyanam jantama. Nasami atma bhavasto gyana deepena baswata. That because to show them mercy, he has promised costless mercy. And how does this costless mercy? He said to show them that costless mercy. Because I'm dwelling in their heart, I destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness that is born of ignorance. That is the practical way. So this is what the Supreme Personality of God does. In a forum before I joined this class, actually I had to leave in the middle of it. I was giving a lecture somewhere. There is a organization called World Alliance for Religious World Alliance of Religion. It's a Korean organization. So once in a month, I visit that the living entity perpetually engage in sinful activities. And I say, oh, that is an interesting subject matter, because somebody has answered that question for me and you. It does not, a devotee, and that is what this verse is speaking to. A devotee does not to scramble, because Arjuna has asked that same question when in chapter 3, text number 36 of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna told Krishna, Atakena prayukto yam papam charati purusha ane cham api vashneya balat iva niyojita. Balat niyojita. Balat means by force. Niyojita means engage. Someone engaged as if being forced. So Arjuna asked Krishna, oh descendant of Vishnu, but what is one impelled to sinful act, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? And Lord Krishna told Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, it's not something to struggle about. You just simply go to understand that is the Supreme Personality of God that is saying that what? Kama esha kruda esha, najo guna samud bhava. Mahasa no mahat papa. Vidi inam. Iha vairinam. Vairinam. The word vairinam means greatest enemy. And in the Christendom, everybody takes the devil as a greatest enemy. And Lord Krishna interestingly is described as enemy. But we broke it down when we explain the greatest enemy is not a Satan, it's a lust that impels man. Why? Because in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, text number 5, Lord Krishna has explained the living entity, how this lust manifests. In chapter 14, text number 5 of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna, Satwam Rajas Tama Iti Gunam Prakriti Sambhava Nibadnati Mahabaho Dehinam Avyayam. Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna that material nature consists of 3 modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And when the eternal living entity, Krishna used that word, he used that same word in chapter 15. Satatam is talking about the living entity's eternality. He said, when the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, material nature, Almighty Arjuna, it becomes conditioned by these 3 modes of material nature. That's how the living entity gets captured. This lust that it gets captured, because sometimes, and we were given one example in that forum, because sometimes, according to the context of the person, so I was given one example. I said, the concept of sin, original sin, is a big subject matter. But living entity does not necessarily because he is sinful now, was sinful in the kingdom of God. No. The only living entity did in the spiritual world is that he desires. And desire is neutral. It is not sinful or pious. Desire is neutral, because that is the property of the living entity given to him by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a part and parcel of the Lord. Just like a man desires to drink alcohol, it does not become intoxicated immediately, but the moment it gets in contact and sees the alcohol, the effect of alcohol starts manifesting. So the living entity is just like a straightforward person desires to drink alcohol. His desiring to drink alcohol does not make him sinful immediately. It does not become intoxicated. But the moment he comes in contact with the taste of the alcohol and he drinks the bottle, 1, 2, and to the more he drinks, in the same way, this is what Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, verse 5, number 5. When he comes in contact, boom, when he takes the first bottle, he's in the mode of goodness. He's thinking, oh, God is there, let me go to him. And when the second bottle, he falls into passion. He wants to do anything now. He's losing his senses. And then when he takes the third bottle, he falls into ignorance. And to the degree he's taking it, it continuously goes to deeper ignorance. So in the same way, living entity is only an inheritance from the kingdom of God, is his desire. But when that desire comes in contact with material nature, Krishna is saying here in this verse, the head, the hinam, avyayam. The head means body, this body. In this body, the hinam, the living entity who is living inside this body, avyayam is eternal. But when it comes in contact with the three modes of nature, so depending on which of them is influenced upon, then it becomes what? It becomes conditioned by these three modes. And that mode is manifested as lust. And the scriptures, Srila Rupa Goswami told us, elaborately explained. Srila Vishnava Chakravarti Thakur, he gave an elaborate purport on the 6 enemies of the living entities. But of all these enemies of living entities, these lust is considered is the greatest enemy as stated by Lord Krishna himself. So the Lord becomes pleased with that person who is sincere. In other words, the greatest principles of religiosity is to become sincere. Because by his nature, and that is what Krishna is. Why am I getting this information today? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So the living entity property is the desire. And when that desire gets in contact into this material world, when that same desire, and that is what Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the purport of the text today. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that if one serves faith, before that he said, if it is confirmed herein that a pure devotee who constantly engages in the loving service of the Lord is awarded all knowledge necessary to reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one uses that same property given by the Lord, which is desire, when he uses it positively, when he uses it for desiring the Supreme Lord, that person is described here. There is no frustration for him, Prabhupada said in the purport. He has no frustration. But when that desire is misused, then it's what? It goes through all kinds of frustration. But when we're talking about this frustration, it is not being misunderstood as we explained before in the verse of Tate Nukampam. God's faith. The challenge is that the living entity, when he misuses that desire, it gets corrupted. But the living entity who is sincere, even in the conditional state of life, when we sincere in devotional service, by such a sincere mind in Krishna consciousness, he may not have these qualifications that is mentioned in the chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita. The chapter 12 tells us about the qualifications that is required. The qualification is to have, as stated in that, I'm trying to get back to that verse, what is saying. Chapter 12, Sadif, can you bring out back that verse? Twelve, 13, and 4, 12, 13, 14. It's 12, 13, 14. 12, 13, and 14. Chapter 12, text number 13 and 14. Yeah. One who is not envious. Thank you. One who is not envious. Let's go. You need to scroll up. Yeah. One who is not envious, one, of all living entities, who does not think of himself a proprietor, two, who is free from false ego, four, who is equal to in both happiness and distress, five, who is tolerant and always satisfied, six, self-control, seven, engage in devotional service with determination, with his mind and intelligence, feast of me. So one who develops all of this quality, Krishna says, is very dear to him. But who is able to develop all of this quality? When we look at our devotional practical life, it is almost impossible in our conditional state of life. But by the sincerity of the devotees, all of these qualities naturally manifest. In other words, a devotee does not need to separately develop all of these qualities. Just because it desires sincerely to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord, as he said, he will give him the intelligence, because he will destroy the darkness in the heart, which is born out of ignorance. He will destroy the darkness in the region of the heart of the lens, so that he can see. He will cleanse. In the same similar verse is sent there in the Bible, that if your sin is as dark, is as red as the blood, how is that verse quoted? If your sin is as there's an analogy that is given there. If it's as red as something else in blood, something like that. I can't remember that. But it is said it will be washed clean if you serve the Lord. So the same thing is said here in the very scriptures, that when one just develops sincerity in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when one develops sincerity in serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord gives the intelligence, and that intelligence manifests in so many things. And that manifestation is what takes the devotee to the ultimate goal, which Maitreya Muni is trying to make us understand here, that nothing remains to be achieved on the path of devotional life for but to who the Lord is pleased with. So that's a person. He achieves everything, and he sees every other thing insignificant, because the satisfaction of blissfulness of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is satisfying to the heart. So Srila Prabhupada concludes that one merely has to become sincere in his purpose, and the Lord is there to help him in every way. So, and that's why Prabhupada is quoting 10:10, because that is the promise of the Lord, that I will give the intelligence, I will give the buddhi, I will give the intelligence, I will give the understanding, I will give the knowledge, I will give everything supportive required for you to attain that level of blissfulness. There is the essence of this verse, and that is why this verse is considered to be one of the conclusions, or is an appropriate conclusion of the whole of the narration of the appearance of the Varaha, of all the leaders of the Lord, the narrations of the scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, all of the Vedic scriptures. The conclusion is that one must understand that one has to achieve the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of God. And the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of God can be attained, develop those nine qualities that is explained in Bhagavad Gita. But to achieve all of that in one go, one has to simply become sincere in desiring to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when one is desiring to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the Lord will do the remaining thing. Everything is left to him. what is left from what is required for one to do is to express his own sincerity. And that sincerity, God will develop. God will manifest everything that is remaining for the soul. I think I will stop here. Then we'll have question and answer section for this discussion. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Sri SALIKA Prabhu, as always, thank you so much for speaking. This is a very interesting subject matter. And I think, as always, you did very good justice to it. Anyone with something to ask, a question to ask, something to share, realizations? I have this question about pleasing the Lord. The text and the purport both indicate that when one is been able to please the Lord, then such an individual lacks nothing.
Well,
and I am thinking and wondering, as I'm asking, I'm also trying to answer the question myself. So I'm battling with it in my own crazy head. But what I'm wondering is, in this material world, when someone is pleased with another individual, then this individual, especially if someone is in a very high position and is pleased with someone, even when the subordinate who is favored by the superior person can also free the subordinate from whatever wrongs he's performed. For example, if someone is a president of a country, he can decide to free someone who's committed a crime and is been put in jail. Is that the case with Krishna, that he is pleased with someone, so no matter what this individual does, the Supreme Lord is still going to be happy with him and favor him? Is that what it is? Or it's a different ball game altogether?
Thank you so much, sir. You just reminded me of my beloved late father. When we were growing, he told us this, and then he said I learned it from my father. Fortunately, I lived with his father when I was young. And then it has also become also my mantra when it comes to this kind of subject matter. And what is that? My father will always say, there are so many things God can do, but he will not do. It does not mean that he doesn't have the power to do it, but he will not do it. Because God is not a God of confusion. And my dad will always add to it. He said, for an example, for the Queen of England to die, and they said the next queen is my mother, he said, God will not make that happen, even though it is not impossible. Because it's not impossible. My father is a village man in the remote part of Ogun State in the southwest of Nigeria. So for the Queen of England to die, and they said they want to appoint the next queen, and they will say, okay, they couldn't find anybody, they will come to Nigeria in the southwest and carry his mother. He said, God will not make that kind of a thing happen because it will create confusion. So God is not a God of confusion. So yes, God does not abuse his own power. God favors when he's pleased, but he himself, as he said in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, he said, if I do not do this, people in general will not follow. And that is why Krishna was telling Arjuna in chapter 3 that that whatever a great man does, common men follow. Whatever exemplary art he laid down in place, people in general pursue. Because Krishna is not a disorderliness person. Although he has the power to do anything, he will do those things which are in order with nature he has created. He does not do things outside of his own nature. There are things that is beyond human nature that God can still do. And that was what we call miracle or costless mercy. And such is that for someone like me to be sitting down and speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, according to the Vedic principle, this is not possible. But out of his costless mercy, in his form as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made a chandala, a dog eater like me, to speak Srimad Bhagavatam. God would do such a thing that is in consonant, alignment with his principles of nature. But there are things that God can do. He will never do them because it will create disorderliness. And that is why Krishna knows that sometimes there are certain things he can do that he will not do. And so that's why he told Arjuna, declare it Arjuna boldly, that my devotees will not perish. Because Krishna knows that his devotees sometimes can misbehave. And he will want to save his devotee by all means. Because he has also promised that no matter what, my devotees will never be left alone by me, no matter how sinful they are. So therefore he said, Arjuna, you declare it. And when Krishna is fulfilling the words of Arjuna, he's not fulfilling his own, he's not using his own position of power or superiority. He's fulfilling the promise he has made of his pure devotees. And interestingly, does that mean? Pure devotees of the Lord are not whimsical people. They will not simply ask Krishna to liberate somebody. They know that he is due for punishment. We were having a conversation in a Back to Bible class recently. And I asked a rhetoric question for some of the students to answer. And I asked this question. I said, in Kali Yuga, in the present age, according to the law of Manu Samhita, the law of Manu for mankind, and it is spread across the whole of the Bhagavatam, one who commit a capital sin of killing another person must be killed by the leader of the organization or country or president or anything. I said, but then in Kali Yuga, should capital offense or capital punishment still be allowed? And I allowed all of the students to speak. And each and everybody was saying, yes, capital punishment should be allowed. And I said, no. And I started citing several scriptures that in Kali Yuga, there are certain things that are in injunction with the Vedic standard, but are not allowed because there are no qualified. Just like in Kali Yuga, the ritualistic portion of the Vedic scriptures are not recommended because there are no qualified brahmanas. So should we say that because the Vedic scripture says that this ritual, that ritual should be performed, then we say because it is in the Vedas, they will perform it? No. There are injunctions for every age. That is why Krishna divided in his wisdom into 4 cyclic rotation, the 4 yugas. And in every yuga, he gives the prescribed recommended process of religion. When I was thinking about this verse this morning, and there's a verse that came to mind. Saturday, maybe you can go there. First Canto, chapter 17, text number 38. And it answers your question as if I knew that this question was going to come up. Sukadev Goswami was saying to Maharaj Parishit, he was recounting the Kali. He said, those being petitioned by the personality of Kali gave him permission to reside in places where gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughters were performed. So Kali was given permission for where sinful activities.
What is the quote?
1:17:38.
Okay.
Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, chapter 17, text number 38. When you go down to the purport, Prabhupada said something very interesting. Aha, thank you. So Prabhupada said, the state which wants to eradicate corruption by majority may introduce, Prabhupada used the word may introduced the principles of religion in the following manner. And Prabhupada said 2 compulsory fasting days in a month, if not more, austerity. Even from the economic point of view, such 2-day fasting days in a month in the state will serve tons of food, save tons of food, sorry, and the system will also act very favorably on the general health. And Prabhupada quoted 4 of them. I will not read all of them for time, want of time. In number 2, he said, there must be compulsory marriage of young boys and girls attaining 24 years of age and 16 years of age respectively. Now, look at that injunction. That's what Prabhupada is saying. There is no harm in co-education in the school and colleges, provided the boys and girls are duly married. There is no harm in co-education if they are married. But here, we need to see what is going on. And in case there is any intimate connection between a male and a female student, they should be married properly without illicit relation. The Divorce Act is encouraging prostitution. And this should be abolished. And can we remove divorce in our global law today? Number 3, Papa said the citizens of the state must give in charity up to 50% of their income for the purpose of creating a spiritual atmosphere in the state or in human society, both individually and collectively. They should preach the principle of Bhagavatam by 1A, karma yoga, or doing everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. B, regularly hearing of the Srimad Bhagavatam from authorized persons or realized souls. C, chanting the glories of the Lord congregationally at home or at places of worship. D, rendering all kinds of service to Bhagavatam, engaging in preaching Srimad Bhagavatam. And E, residing in a place where the atmosphere is situated with God consciousness. If the state is regulated by the above process, naturally there will be God conscious everywhere. We are going forward. Papa says something conclusively. Gambling of all description, even speculative business enterprise, is considered to be degrading. And when gambling is encouraged in the state, there is a complete disappearance of truthfulness, allowing young boys and girls to remain unmarried more than the above mentioned ages. And licensing animal slaughterhouse of all description should be at once prohibited. The flesh eaters may be allowed to take flesh as mentioned in the scriptures and not otherwise. Intoxication of all descriptions, even smoking cigarettes, chewing tobacco, or the drinking of tea must be prohibited. But when you see what Papa was giving this at the beginning, Papa said, this may be. So therefore, that word signified that in this Kali Yuga, according to Desha Kala Patra, time, place, and circumstances, the law of even the law of man, which is for mankind, has to be. So therefore, yes, capital offenses must be meted with capital punishment only if we have a just, and for justice to be meted, there must be a just situation, a just law and system of justice. So these are some of the things. So to your question specifically, there are so many things the Supreme Personality of Godhead can do, but it does not, like my father will say, he knows he can do everything. Personality of Godhead, but the reckless non-entities in Kali Yuga who have assumed the position of leadership do not have any qualifications. So therefore, they use their power corruptly because themselves are corrupted. So therefore, they are not allowed. And that is what it is called costless mercy. And that costless mercy does not negate the principles of Dharma, because that is the guiding rule which the Lord himself has established. And the Lord does not destroy his own Dharmic principles, because that is what he reestablished over and over again when he appears in this material world. I hope this helps a little bit in answering the question.
Yeah, it helps. It helps a lot. But still, I am wondering how sometimes, because my understanding is that for one to be able to stay in devotional service and try to practice devotional service in any form or shape, it's all due to the mercy of the Lord. So
Absolutely.
I'm still wondering how sometimes we see that there may be one particular person who may cause so many other people to miss the opportunity of being a servant of the Lord, being a devotee of Lord Krishna. Yet these people keep growing and growing in the movement. I mean, they kick people out, but they are still in. So I think being in simply means that the Supreme Lord is being merciful on them. And that is part of the reason why I asked this question. But the answer you gave is beautiful, but it's still a wonder how the Supreme Lord does what he does. But like you said, he does not abuse his position. So that is what is a little bit bewildering.
Thank you very much, Sadi. I'm trying to take us to Bhagavad Gita chapter 18. I think in the purport of text number 2 or text number 3, Prabhupada was saying something that relates to what you're talking about. I'm trying to remember that verse. Prabhupada was talking about sannyasi. Which verse is that? Let me check. But in one of the texts in the first, I think it's text number 2. I'm trying to. No, not text number 2. There's one of the texts. I'm trying to find that text. Prabhupada explained exactly what you're talking about, where sometimes people take positions of sannyasis, that people will sometimes take the position of a leader. I can't remember the purpose, but I know it's one of the first tests of, if I remember the exact test, I'll quote it before. Kali Yuga, the Papa was describing the difference between the name sannyasi and Kali Yuga, that sometimes people will even dress as a saintly person or as take the position of a sannyasi, and they will come into the spiritual organizations like Krishna consciousness movement, and they will deceive people. But now the question you're asking is that, why is Krishna still keeping them there? That's your question. So the reason is simple. Krishna is favorable to everyone. And that is why intricacies of action and inaction are very difficult to understand. According to the law of karma, Krishna told Arjuna, one who does good, my dear friend Arjuna, will never be befallen by evil. You and me have gone through so many tormentations in our devotional life, yet we remain. Is it because we are so happy with the leadership that we have worked under, we have served under? No. Because Krishna is keeping us. Because there is still something for us in devotional service. But one is not sincere. And that is why Prabhupada was emphasizing that point. When one does not himself become sincere, he becomes the victim of this corrupt leadership. And he loses his passion of process of devotional service. So the story, can I remember the story? The story of the Janami Jaya, I can't remember that story. Let me not go there. I can't remember that story very well. But there is one story about a snake poisons. I'm not trying to remember one story that relates to this. There's a story like that. But the point here is this, that nothing happens to anyone by chance. So if someone is in devotional service and somehow or the other, he was victimized and he leaves devotional service, and we can see physically, genuinely, that the person was actually victimized, it is simultaneously the karma of that person. Krishna is doing so many things within one action. And that is why he said the intricacies of action and inaction are difficult to understand. Because that person, if he's sincere enough, Krishna will protect him, no matter the nonsensical leadership. Somehow or the other, the person will drag on. But if that person also, level of sincerity is not strong enough, he will leave. So someone leaving devotional service is not ultimately or 300% the fault of the bad leadership. Bad leadership might be a contributing factor because that person also actually was destined to be under that bad leadership for a purpose. So leadership, whether in spiritual organization or material system, are manifesting according to the karma that living entity. And that is why Srila Prabhupada intentionally quoted that verse, Tate Nukampam. That's why Srila Prabhupada quoted that verse, Tate Nukampam. Because that person who is sincere in his devotional service, Krishna will come through and guide that person to overcome the victimization, the challenges of a bad leadership. And that is where the costless mercy manifests. The costless mercy manifests for that sincere devotee, even though it may not be pure, but because he has sincerity. And that is what Prabhupada said in the purport of 10:10, which we quoted earlier, the last paragraph in chapter 10, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, that where Prabhupada says, if a devotee is not intelligent enough to make progress on the path of self-realization, but he is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotional service, the Lord gives him a chance to make progress, ultimately to attain him. That's what Srila Prabhupada said in his purport to chapter 10, verse 10 of Bhagavad Gita. So the fact that, yes, externally we see that many people leave devotional service because of bad leadership. Many people have died in material circumstances due to bad governance. But it is not absolutely the fault of the bad leadership. And that is why when karma is being described, it's described like a kind of a web. So many things are put together to actualize certain things. So the fact that somebody was victimized, abused, destroyed, and asked to leave devotional service means that person also has certain things remaining for him to work upon. But when one is 100% sincere, promise of Krishna is that Krishna says, I will come true. And that is what he promises in 10:11. I will come true. I will come true. And when Krishna comes through, he will give that devotees the way to go about it. But that sincerity must be there. And when we talk about sincerity, sincerity is a simple word. But when you go deep to studying what is sincerity, sincerity is not just because I intend, it's not the same thing as intention. Sometimes when we talk about sincerity, sometimes we mistakenly compare sincerity with intention. I have a good intention, but that is not sincerity. Intention, good intention or any intention is not the same thing. It's not equal to sincerity. Sincerity is something deeper than intention. One may have a good intention, but when you go deeper, when you come to sincerity, sincerity is intention backed up with knowledge. And that is why in 7:28 of Bhagavad Gita, Yisham tu antagata pam gena man punya karmana. Te donda vinimu bagate man bidavrata. That strong determination to continue in devotional service arising as a result of lot of pious activities, both in previous and present life. When those piety matures enough, one would develop strong determination in devotional service. So if someone's determination is not strong enough to withstand the temptations of Maya in devotional service and it falls apart, it is not the fault of the temptation. It is his fault of his not having enough punya karma. That does not free that whimsical leader. That does not free that nonsensical temple president or sannyasi or guru or whoever he is or she is that is tormenting devotee. Such a person also will meet with his own cup of tea. Krishna will reward him accordingly. And that is what also confirms, yata man prapadyante tams tataiva bajami aham. Nama vatmanu vatante manusha na pata sarvasha. All of them, as they surrender unto me, the level of your sincere surrendering to Krishna determines the reciprocation of Krishna. So when you look at all of these references of these verses, Krishna doesn't make mistake. And that is why we say that there are so many things Krishna will do. Krishna can protect that devotee because he was being victimized. Actually, he has a good intention, but his intention may not be backed up with sincerity or strong sincerity. Because sometimes someone will be sincere, what we call in material language, novice. It may be naive. Someone is naive. Naivety is a very strong word. We use it in material language. But when we come to devotional balance, when we talk about intention and sincerity in devotional service, a good intentional devotee, aspiring devotee is not naive. And that is why it is said that after many, many births, those who have come realize, they know, they said, Krishna Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they will not leave him, no matter what. Krishna never leaves his devotee, and the devotees never leave Krishna at any stage. I hope that helps a little.
Yeah. I'd like to say if others have something to ask or to share. Anyone else with something to ask or to share? Otherwise, Salika Prabhu, I believe this may be my last question for today, is that, yes, I accept everything you said, but this three-letter word in English is so rampant and so powerful, and that is but. I still have some uncleared doubt in my mind, and that is, one, how does, excuse me, how does one's karma get in the way of his devotional service when we hear that there is no cause for one becoming a devotee? We cannot say this person did this, did that, and that is why he became a devotee. It is causeless. If it is causeless, then how does one's karma prevent him from becoming a devotee? Two, I have heard so many times when Srila Prabhupada would lament when a devotee leaves his movement. He laments that he was unable to protect that particular soul. I do not think I have come across anywhere where Srila Prabhupada said this person's karma made him lose the taste of devotional service. Excuse me. But I believe that if one desires, if one's desires are strong to serve the Lord, then the Lord also comes through. But a desire to serve the Lord oftentimes may be defeated by the circumstances. And that is why we are advised that as association is much, much more powerful than willpower for many people. Because I may not want to eat meat, but if I continue to associate so much with meat eaters, there is a greater chance that I also become a meat eater. So it still boils down to how someone in the position of being a protector is unable to protect a soul, whether the soul's karma or whatever, and the supposed protector does not even have the sentiment that he is unhappy losing that particular soul from being a devotee of the Lord in this lifetime. These are some of the doubts that still cloud my mind.
Thank you very much.
I think I will have to think more about it. Of course, based on the references you've given, I think I just have to read more. But these are some of the clouds I have.
Thank you very much, Sadi Prabhu. Let me start by congratulating you because you are advancing in the path of devotional service. I can see that from your question. Because why? I wish I could have this much of this doubt, because the moment you start having less doubt, then you are in Maya. So the fact that you're having this doubt shows that at least you're advancing in devotion, and I congratulate you for that. That's first thing. Secondly, you've asked multiple questions in one question, and I'll try to address them. You've asked like about 6 questions from my listening to you, and I'll try to address each of the questions that I think I heard from you say. So this may take a little bit longer to explain, but I'll try to summarize it as much as possible. And all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Sri Krishna Bhagavan. And Prabhupada is very, very expert. Prabhupada is very expert. And it cannot be otherwise, because it's what? He's a Nitya Siddha. And why is he a Nitya Siddha? Because he knows the art of Krishna. And because Prabhupada knows the art of Krishna, he knows what we are not thinking yet and what we will think. So therefore, Krishna puts Arjuna in that position so that he can ask the question that we will come to ask today, millions of years behind. So the first question you are talking about, how can karma interfere with one devotional service? Karma has no capacity to stop devotional service. It has no karma. It has no jurisdiction. But what kind of devotee? Go back to that same chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita, 10:10. Prabhupada is an expert preacher. When Prabhupada quoted a verse, Prabhupada is deeply talking. When they go to chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita, text number 10, everything is answered in that verse that you are talking. Krishna said, Prabhupada was in the purport. Prabhupada said in that same 4th paragraph, he said, let's start from the beginning so that we can get there, so that we can understand. He said in this verse, the word Buddhi Yogam is very significant. We may remember that in 2nd chapter, the Lord instructed Jews and said that he had spoken to him of many things, and he will instruct him in the way of Buddha Yoga. Now, Buddha Yoga is explained. Buddha Yoga itself is action in Krishna consciousness, but it's the highest intelligence. Buddhi means intelligence, and yoga means mystic activities or mystic elevation. When one tries to go back to Godhead and takes fully to Krishna consciousness in devotional service, this is where I want to read to you. When one tries to go back home, back to Godhead, and takes fully to Krishna consciousness in devotional service, we're talking about bhakti here, and those who are in devotional service. His action is called Buddhi Yoga. Such a person cannot have any impediment, no matter what it is. In other words, Buddhi Yoga is the process by which one gets out of the entanglement of material world, the ultimate goal of process of in Krishna consciousness. People do not know this, therefore, the association of devotees and bona fide spiritual master is important. One should know that the goal of devotion of Krishna, the goal is Krishna. And when the goal is assigned, then the path is slowly but progressively traversed, and ultimately goal is achieved. Now, to answer your question, why do we say that someone karma can catch up with him? When a person knows the goal of life, but is addicted to the fruit of activities, we have established those who are in devotional service. Now it's explaining why karma can catch up with you, while even in devotional service. When a person knows the goal of life, but is addicted to the fruit of activities, is acting in karma yoga. Karma yoga is divided into 3. We're not going into detail of that. When he knows that goal is Krishna, but he takes pleasure in mental speculation to understand Krishna, he's acting in Jnana yoga. And when he knows that the goal and see Krishna completing Krishna consciousness and devotional service, is acting in Bhakti yoga or Buddhi yoga, which is the complete yoga. This complete yoga is the highest perfectional stage of life. So this is the reason why, although one may be in devotional service, is devotional. That's why I explained before that intention and it is sincerity are not the same thing. They look alike, but they are not the same thing at all. So someone is in devotional service, as in devotional service, Prabhupada explained in the Nectar of Devotion that one can be in devotional service in the goodness, one can be in devotional service in passion, one can be in devotional service in ignorance. So devotional service, when we say bhakti, that word bhakti, when you mention the word bhakti, it means a lot of this, a volume word. So when we say bhakti or Krishna consciousness, when one is in this process, one can be in the category of a devotional service in goodness, in passion, or ignorance. Or one may be fortunate, he has transcended both passion, goodness, ignorance, and is in transcendental devotional service. And that is what Krishna is telling us. Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma Nasa Shati Nakan Shati Sama Sabeju Bhukteju Bhakti Labate Param. That person is what is in the highest level of Krishna consciousness. His Krishna consciousness has transcended goodness, passion, and ignorance. He is no longer in the category of what Prabhupada is describing in the purport of chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita. So someone can be caught up with karma if he's in this process of devotional service and is addicted, as Prabhupada uses the word, or attracted to this particular. There are so many who are in devotional service. Their attraction to Krishna consciousness is not because they want to go back to Godhead. And even some people just want to go back to God. Actually, devotee does not want to go back to Godhead. Actually, that is not the purest level. A devotee, actually, a pure devotee, actually wants to love Krishna. He's not care. In the back, we are in the month of Kartik. There is this verse 3 of the Shishastakam. Sadev, can you bring out that Shishastakam? Itik Salila Ananda Kunde. Text number 3 of the Shishastakam. Sorry, of the Damodara Astakam. Itik Salila Bi Ananda Kunde. Tagoshaniyan Majantam Akiapayantam. Adieshi Tageshu Bakta Jitatwam Puna Prematam Satam Avritivande Bring out the purport, the translation. You see something wonderful. Itibrisalilabi Ananda Kunde Tagoshaniya Yantam Nakia Payantam. Thank you. Let's go to text number 3. It's interesting. Yeah. Itibrisalilabi. No, not Shishastakam. I said Damodara Astakam. Sorry. Damodara Astakam. Not Shishastakam. Damodara Astakam. Sorry. Damodara Astakam. Itibrisalilabi Ananda Kunde Tagoshani Majantam Akia Payantam. Adiyeshitageshu Bhaktachitatam. Puna Primatam Satam Avritivandem. Yeah. Text number 3. Beautiful. Just let's go to that. Take the Shalilabi. Yeah. Let's go to translation number 3. It is saying, oh Lord, you are unable to, by such shadow pastime as this is drawing the inhabitant of Gokul in pools of ecstasy, is revealing, excuse me, is revealing to those devotees who are absorbed in knowledge of his supreme majesty and opulence that he is only conquered by devotees whose pure love is imbued with intimacy and is free from all conceptions of awe and reference. With great love, I again offer my obeisances to Lord Damodara hundreds and hundreds of times. He is revealing himself to those devotees who are imbued with intimacy. So even in devotional service, desiring to go back to Goloka Vrindavan is not the purest. A devotee of the Lord doesn't want to go to Goloka Vrindavan. He's not desiring anything. He's desiring to go back only to Krishna. He just wants to love Krishna. The residents of Vrindavan, Mother Yasoda is described here. He's absorbed in the love of Krishna. He has no other desire. He just wants to absorb himself in loving Krishna. So when we say bhakti, it has layers. So therefore, somebody in pure bhakti, no matter of karma is far out. You cannot reach him. But when we say karma, when we say that naive devotee, who is in the state of naivety or kanishta bhakta, it can be affected. And that is why we quoted that verse 728. 728. Tisham saktakta yukta no. Yesham tu anta gata papam genamam puya karmana. After many pious activities in pious life and this life, one comes into devotional service. But the degree of that piety will determine the determination of the devotees in Krishna consciousness. Going further into your questions, you were asking that in devotional service, sometimes, why is it that the people actually who do not feel morose after destroying somebody, you mentioned Srila Prabhupada will be so pained when he devote, because Srila Prabhupada is on that stage of level of pure bhakti. So when any activities happen, the consciousness of the living entity determines how he responds to them. A devotee of the Lord, when he sees situation happens, he sees Krishna and he acts in Krishna consciousness. One who is not a devotee of Krishna, that is how you know them. And that is what Srila Prabhupada elaborately explained, that in the assembly of gentlemen sitting with a nice tie, you know only a foolish man when he expresses himself. So that person, whether he's tying this dhoti of a sannyasi, he is the temple president, temple commander, he is the Maharaj, he is the sannyasi, he is the Vanachari, he is anything, whatever identity that person has given to him, he has no significance in identifying the pure devotional qualification. His qualification is determined by what? By what he expresses. When a devotee of the Lord speaks, when you hear a devotee speaks, your heart melts immediately. Because why? He is expressing that high level of pure bhakti. So when somebody is not, even though a devotee knows that someone is very whimsical and nonsensical, he has fallen down due to his mistake, but a devotee feels pain that, oh, I'm not pure enough to save this person. Because what is the position of a pure devotee? Now, the money goes all about Mrigari Hunter was one of the most hellish person. But Mrigari the Hunter, by coming in contact with a pure devotee like Nada Muni, immediately become purified. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in this age of Kali, he exemplified that when Nityananda Prabhu was preaching, Jagaya Madai, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, I want to destroy them. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said no. Nityananda said no. This is not your mission in this age. Your mission in this age is not to kill. If you want to kill, you will kill everybody. Because there is no one here worthy of living. So therefore, when somebody feels unconcerned, unrepentant, unpained by the act of a devotee living, you should know that person is not a devotee of high caliber. It may be a devotee, but is a devotee in the lowest consciousness. Because why? His activities reflects that. So therefore, that is why in devotional service, we are not concerned about what title, identity you carry, but we are concerned about how you express yourself in devotional service. How somebody carries himself, how he responds to circumstances. That is how you know a pure devotee in the devotional service. So it's not about the position or the identity the person carries. Furthermore, in your question, you analyze this part of devotional service. Ultimately, when you look at devotional service, it is actually a very interesting thing. In devotional service, when Arjuna was asking Krishna about Bhakti, and that is why in chapter 18 of Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna was summarizing Arjuna, Krishna was summarizing Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna told Arjuna, he said, now I've told you everything. I've spoken everything I needed to speak. Now, it is now in your court. Do what you want to do. And Arjuna said to Krishna in Bhagavad Gita chapter 18, text number 73 downward. And he said, yes, Krishna, I've heard. I've known. Now I know what to do. What to do and what not to do is bestowed upon someone who has actually known. And how do you know? By hearing. So these are some of the responses to the questions you have raised. And like I said, it could take us 1 hour to explain all of the questions you have raised, but I'm just trying to summarize all of them in these few sentences. Thank you very much for that beautiful question.
Well, thank you so much for doing justice to my series of questions. Thank you so much. I believe we may bring this to a close today. And today is Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday, the last day of the week. And also the last day to meet here in the month of October. When we meet again next week, by the mercy of the Lord, we will be entering into the month of November. We will be in the month of November, I should say. So, it seems Amsadita has something to ask or to say. Amsadita Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, Your Grace, please can you accept my respectful obeisances?
Hare Krishna.
All praise to Gurudeva, which Prabhupada, and all words to the wonderful and sound devotees. Your Grace, thank you for the explanation to His Grace Saturday Prabhu's question. The question I want to ask is that, so if karma cannot interfere with somebody's devotional service, why is it that Lord Brahma, who is the secondary creator, he committed offense by kidnapping Krishna and the cowherd boys? He has to come to this earth because of the offense he committed, because that is his karma. Please, can you let me explain to let me understand that, if maybe I did not, if I'm confused about the question. So
thank you very much, sir.
Well,
thank you very much, before we go into that question, let us establish something first. There is the lila of the Lord, and there is the karma that is before living, and is based on their desire. The narration you just cited as an example is a lila of the Lord. Just like Arjuna was acting foolish That is not Arjun. Arjun is Nara, and Krishna is Narayan. So Lord Brahma is the highest devotee on the earth planet. So some of the activities of Lord Brahma are activities of Lila of the Lord. For the Lord to exhibit his Lila, he puts his devotee in a particular circumstances so that he can manifest, just like he puts Arjun in the circumstances whereby Arjun started expressing bewilderment. And because of that Arjun's bewilderment, we were able to get the benefit of answering the question we would have been asking Krishna today. So Krishna answered them 120 million years ago when he spoke to Viswaswan, because Krishna knows the past and the present, the future from the present. So because Krishna knows the past and the future in the present, he knew what we will be asking in the future. So he answered the question in the present, referencing the past. So now, that is one aspect of it. Now, the second thing is that Lord Brahma is a Jiva Atma, although it's a highly elevated living entity. And that's why Lord Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Puna Avati no Juna. From the highest planetary system to the lowest planetary system, they are all places where repeated birth and death takes place. And because repeated birth and death takes place there, it means that they are subjective to goodness, passion, and ignorance. So Lord Brahma is in the category of a Jiva Atma. Because it's in the category of a Jiva Atma, so therefore the tendencies to make mistake is inherent in him. Because if he is under the influence of the modes of material nature, of goodness, that does not mean that it's transcendental pure goodness. Like we explained earlier on, there is passion, there is ignorance, there is goodness, but there is transcendental goodness. So Lord Brahma is acting on the mode of goodness. But just like you see a very packer devotee sometimes, he has been a devotee for 10 years, 20 years, 40 years. And all of a sudden, it crashes. Boom. It is said that due to previous karma, such an incident may happen with just a devotee, but it will not remain there. That is the difference. One who is actually on that platform, he will not, when he falls down, fall down become his stepping stone for re-establishing himself in a higher level of Krishna consciousness. So Lord Brahma is a Jiva Atma, so he is under the three modes of material nature. He was under the mode of goodness, but then the tendency to make mistakes are there. Because this is characteristics of the Jiva Atma. Although it's a beauty of high caliber, but chances to fall is there. So Lord Krishna is teaching us that even at the highest level of devotional service, and that is why the pure devotees, someone asked Srila Prabhupada sometimes, that Srila Prabhupada, why are you still chanting? Prabhupada did not need to chant. But Papa was chanting to teach that, because he knew that someday, sometime it will happen. Someone would say, okay, I've become a sannyasi, I'm a guru now. I don't need to chant again. So proper to avert that, it teaches by example. And that is why an acharya is called one who lives by example. So therefore, yes, karma cannot interrupt bhakti. That is why Krishna says in 932 that even if he commits the most abominable sinful act, he is quickly reestablished. Why? Because it's in devotional service. So in other words, a devotee can fall down. A devotee can fall down due to karma, previous activities. But that devotee will not remain in a falling situation, because it's protected by the costless mercy of devotion. So immediately, he will quickly rise again. That's what Krishna was explaining in 932 of Bhagavad Gita. So the fact that what we have taken to the path of devotional service, it shows us that that does not mean that, and that is why in the beginning of the lecture, I was emphasizing on 10:14:8, Tate Nukampam. That's why I went to that verse. That when Maitreya Muni was saying that there's nothing remaining for that person who's in devotional service unattainable, that should not be cloud our mind. That nothing is remaining does not mean that there will not be challenges. But when the challenges are coming, when that fall down comes, when that mistake comes, immediately a devotee realizes, oh, I'm falling down, and he quickly reestablishes himself in Krishna consciousness. The devotee does not intentionally engage in sinful activities, but due to his previous circumstances, he falls down, he immediately reinstates himself because he's protected by the costless mercy of bhakti, devotion and service. I hope this helps a little.
Yes, thank you. So for the explanation, that means as some devotees or some people act in the way to teach us, but not. That doesn't mean that it was because of their karma, but just for us to learn.
Yeah, but we should not hide behind that. That's a dangerous thinking in our own position. I have one god brother in the early days of my devotional service, but is it Jeremiah, this boy? We were baptized in the early days. And when he wants to punish me, I was in the kitchen, I was doing deity worship and cooking for devotees. So because he wants to punish me, when he comes, when I finish cooking, before I offer the boga to take to the altar, he will go into the kitchen and dip hand and start eating it. And he will say, Krishna is eating the mat of the Brahmana. Dr. Jeremiah is no longer in devotional service now. His musical activities pull him out. But so the fact that, yes, a devotee can fall down does not mean that we should leverage on that and then intentionally fall down. A devotee does not intentionally engage in sinful activities. But if it does happen by chance, not by chance, as a result of previous karma, understand also that there are karma of difference in the nectar of devotion. Srila Goswami explained, there are karma that is as a result of previous activities. There are several reasons why a devotee can fall down. It is explained nicely in Nectar of Devotion, this subject matter. There are certain offenses. There are some degree of offenses that one commits, one will be protected and it cannot fall down from devotional service. But there are offenses that you commit. When you commit them, it pulls you out immediately out of devotional service. Devotee can fall down due to karma. And that karma could be previous, it could be present karma. But the beauty of it is that if that devotee, back again to the point, if he's sincere and he falls down as a result of that karma of his previous life. So that is why Prabhupada quoted Tate Nukampam. He sees that it's small mercy of the Lord and he quickly reinstates himself on the path of devotional service, regretful, like Sadhguru Prabhu was emphasizing, that those devotees, they don't feel remorseful, even when they have caused somebody to leave devotional service. Yes, that person may have gone as a result of his karma, but they have become an instrument, and a devotee does not become happy for being an instrument for destroying another person's devotional life. They feel so pain. Not to talk of one who is a pure devotee. A pure devotee says, oh, I'm not qualified enough to protect this person. So therefore, the person leaves. So it should not be a leverage. And did you know, when one is committing, when I say previous and present karma, when there are some offenses that we commit, even in this present life, not as a result of previous karma, we start losing taste for chanting. So therefore, it is mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Prabhupada commented on it. And Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur in Harinam Chintamani also explains that a devotee's watchword or what torchlight is that when you started all of a sudden seeing that your devotional taste in chanting is reducing, know there is some problem somewhere. Even when you do not know whether you have committed or not committed offenses, The moment the reciprocative result of offenses in devotional service is that you start losing taste in devotional service. Your material desires start increasing. Your ability to practice the simplest thing that you do conveniently, effortlessly before becomes very difficult to perform. These are some of the traces you see. And then there are so many cases. One of them is Shitraketu. Shitraketu was caused to become a demon, became Vistrasura because he jokingly offended Lord Shiva's wife, Parvati. Daksha is another example. Daksha offended Lord Shiva. There are long stories. I don't want to go into the long story. The Shitraketu is a devotee. Daksha is a devotee of the Lord. Daksha is the son of Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma recommended him to marry the daughter of, to marry his daughter, Sati, to Lord Shiva. But he committed against offenses because he sees Lord Shiva as my son-in-law. And he started committing offenses. When we get to canto 4 of Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll hear that past times. And Shitraketu also is another one. He's a devotee, but he became a demon, became Vritasura. So simply offending the wife of Lord Shiva.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Grace. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Well, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you all. I believe we'll bring this beautiful Lila to a close today. And with that, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute yourselves, and we all chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra to express our deepest appreciation to our revered speaker, His Grace SALIKA Prabhu Jai. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Hare
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare Hare.
Rama
Panchakalpatarubhyaścha, Kripasimabhyarupacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo. Ananta Kotsuru Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai.
Mantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Hare
How glorious to assemble devotees.